Long before smart thermostats and modern heaters, homes were kept warm in ways we've almost forgotten. When harsh winters arrived, our grandparents relied on experience, not electricity. Today, we'll explore 50 amazing tips from our grandparents' time to keep your home warm, even during the coldest days. Building a blanket fort in the living room. For children growing up in the 80s, constructing a blanket fort was never merely a game. During those harsh winter nights when temperatures plummeted below freezing, this was actually a clever survival technique disguised as play. The principle relies on shrinking the living space as much as possible to preserve heat. When you huddle into a small area enclosed by layers of thick wool blankets, your body heat doesn't dissipate into the vast, chilly void of the living room. Instead, that warmth remains trapped inside, resonating with the body heat of everyone in the tent to create a surprisingly cozy microclimate. Our grandparents often used wooden clothespins to secure the edges of the blankets to the back of the sofa, creating a secluded dome. Inside that fortress, the air remained 5 to 10 degrees warmer than the outside, a precious difference when the primary heating system failed or was overwhelmed. Moreover, the sense of security from being cocooned in soft fabric, the dim glow of an old flashlight, and the whispered bedtime stories from parents turned the frightening cold outside into a mere fading background. The power of the clay pot heater. Before modern ceramic heaters flooded the market, our grandfathers crafted highly effective personal heating stations, using nothing more than simple gardening supplies. This device consists of a tea light candle placed on a fireproof base, covered by 2 terracotta pots of different sizes, nested one inside the other. It is a brilliant application of thermal physics in daily life. Though a candle flame is small, its constant burning creates a rising stream of hot air. Instead of letting this heat escape to the ceiling and vanish, the dome of the clay pots captures it. Terracotta is a material that excels at absorbing and retaining heat for long periods. As the inner pot heats up, it transfers that energy to the outer pot, and the entire ceramic mass begins to act as a radiator, beaming warmth 360 degrees around the room. The genius of this design lies in its ability to convert a tiny convective flame into a steady source of radiant heat that can thaw frozen hands or warm a small workspace for 4 hours with just one inexpensive candle. The hot water bottle. If there is one object that deserves to be honored as the silent hero of old-fashioned winter nights, it is the red rubber or silicone hot water bottle. In an era when electric blankets or heated mattress pads were either luxury items or not yet safe, the hot water bottle was the ultimate savior to banish the biting cold at the foot of the bed. The ritual of preparing for sleep back then always began with the sound of a kettle whistling on the stove, followed by the careful pouring of boiling water into the bottle and tightening the stopper. The secret to long-lasting warmth lay in the outer cover. Mothers and grandmothers would often knit special wool sweaters for these bottles, or wrap them in soft cotton towels before placing them under the covers. This fabric served 2 vital purposes: preventing skin burns from direct contact and acting as insulation to keep the water hot throughout the long night. Slipping your feet into bed and touching that warm mass provided a wonderful sense of comfort to a shivering body. Even by the next morning, the water would still be lukewarm enough for washing one's face. The presence of a hot water bottle reflected a lifestyle of foresight and attention to the smallest details within the family home. Traditional heated bricks. Stepping back a bit further in time, before rubber became common, our ancestors used a primitive yet equally effective solution: fired bricks, also known as hot stones. They typically chose solid clay bricks or soapstone because of their high density, which allows them to store a massive amount of thermal energy. Every evening, a few clean bricks would be placed on the wood stove or near the fireplace for about an hour until they became scorching hot, reaching temperatures around 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Once fully charged with heat, these bricks were carefully removed and wrapped securely in multiple layers of burlap or old wool towels. They were placed at the foot of the bed or even in horse-drawn carriages and sleds to keep passengers warm during long journeys. Unlike hot water bottles, which cool down according to the laws of liquids, heated bricks emit a dry, deep, and much steadier heat. This warmth from hot stones can penetrate through many layers of bedding, maintaining a stable heat nest until dawn. While this method required effort and extreme caution to avoid fires, it was one of the best secrets for utilizing thermal energy. The masonry heater. This is considered the pinnacle of passive heating engineering used in Western architecture for centuries. Completely different from thin metal stoves or standard open fireplaces, a masonry heater is a massive structure built from tons of fire brick or stone, usually situated at the heart of the home. Its operation is based on the principle of thermal mass storage. Inside this gargantuan structure is a labyrinth of smoke channels that force hot air from the firebox to travel a long distance before exiting the chimney. This process allows the brick mass to absorb nearly all the heat energy from a fast-burning, high-temperature fire. Once the fire goes out, the heater has stored enough energy to begin slowly radiating warmth into the living space. The heat from a masonry heater is very gentle, spreading steadily for 12 to 24 hours after just one brief wood-burning session. This freed the homeowner from having to wake up in the middle of the night to stoke the fire. The presence of this towering masonry heater in the middle of the house was like a glowing heart, beating with steady pulses of warmth to sustain the whole family through long, grueling winters. Do you remember any of these memories with your loved ones? Share them with us in the comments below. Door draft stoppers. Drafts cold air snaking through door gaps were the #1 enemy of keeping a house warm. No matter how large a fire you built, if cold air constantly seeped in under the door, the house would never truly warm up. To solve this, the draft snake was born. These were long fabric tubes sewn from scraps or old clothes and packed tightly with sand, rice, dried beans, or cotton batting. These fabric snakes were placed snugly against the base of the door, completely sealing the gap between the door and the floor. The weight of the filling kept them in place, blocking any northern winds trying to crawl inside. Beyond stopping drafts, they also helped with soundproofing and keeping out dust. Many skillful mothers even added eyes, noses, and tongues to turn these inanimate objects into whimsical creatures that delighted the children. Utilizing passive solar energy. Long before the concept of green architecture became popular, the skilled builders of yesteryear possessed a profound understanding of the sun's path. They designed houses so that the largest windows always face south to capture the full extent of the sunlight during short winter days. But the true secret lay in combining this light with the right flooring materials. Homes of that era often used dark-colored brick, slate, or concrete floors in areas that received direct sunlight. These materials acted like giant thermal batteries. During the day, as sunlight streamed through the glass and hit the floor, the dark colors absorbed maximum thermal radiation rather than reflecting it. The floor would gradually heat up, storing solar energy within its physical structure. When night fell and the air temperature dropped, the heat stored in the floor would automatically be released back into the room. This was a completely automated, free, and eternal heating cycle. Our grandparents knew that instead of fighting nature, one should learn to lean on it, turning a house into a smart energy collection machine. Thermal curtains. In an age before double pane or triple pane vacuum-sealed windows existed, windows were the biggest holes through which a house lost its heat. To overcome this weakness, homemakers hand-sewed thick thermal curtains that acted as protective armor for the glass panes. A standard old-fashioned thermal curtain consisted of at least 3 layers: a decorative front fabric, a middle layer of cotton or felt to trap air, and a heat-reflective lining facing the window. The mechanism of thermal curtains was very flexible. During the day, they were flung wide open to welcome the sun and warm the space. But the moment the sun dipped below the horizon, the curtains had to be drawn shut immediately. The thick layers created a buffer zone of still air between the cold glass and the warm interior, halting the process of conductive heat loss. Furthermore, many families used wooden rods to press the curtain edges tight against the wall, creating an airtight seal. This meticulous management of curtains shows how much people of the past cherished every unit of heat, refusing to let any warmth waste away outside. The chimney balloon. An open chimney when no fire is burning is like a giant hole in the ceiling, where warm air from the room is constantly sucked out and cold wind from above pours down. This is a leading cause of rapid heat loss, even if all doors and windows are shut tight. To solve this dilemma, people created chimney stoppers. The modern version is called a chimney balloon. However, in Grandpa's day, they often used old sacks stuffed with straw or fabric scraps to plug the fireplace throat when it wasn't in use. This act created an airtight seal, completely stopping unwanted air convection. It kept precious warm air in the room and prevented cold air from entering. Removing this plug required a careful memory because if one forgot to take it out before lighting a fire, smoke would billow back into the house. Despite the minor inconvenience, the heat retention it provided was undeniable. This was a small maintenance task that demonstrated the meticulousness and high energy-saving awareness of families back then. Manure-powered heating. In traditional farms, livestock barns were often built adjacent to or directly beneath human living quarters. This design was not accidental, but a deliberate thermal calculation. The bodies of large livestock like cows and horses emit a tremendous amount of heat. Additionally, the layer of manure decomposing on the ground also continuously generates heat. Together, these sources created a massive heat pocket enveloping the house. On blizzard-prone winter nights, the temperature in the barn was always much warmer than outside, and that warmth would permeate through the floor or walls to heat the main living area. This symbiosis helped both humans and animals survive harsh winters. While this architecture no longer fits modern hygiene standards, it reminds us of a time when humans lived intimately with their animals, leaning on one another to overcome the cruelty of nature. Isn't this knowledge useful? If this video is reflective panels behind heaters. One of the greatest energy wastes in old homes was letting heat be uselessly absorbed into the walls. When you place a heater or radiator against a wall, nearly 50% of the energy produced transfers directly into the brickwork behind it, instead of radiating into the living space. To fix this, previous generations came up with a brilliantly simple trick: installing reflective panels in the gap between the heater and the wall. The materials used were typically household aluminum foil, taped to cardboard or highly polished thin metal sheets. The principle here is the reflection of thermal radiation. The shiny surface of the foil acts like a mirror, but instead of reflecting images, it reflects infrared heat rays. The heat that would otherwise vanish into the wall is bounced back toward the center of the room where people are gathered. This solution significantly increases heating efficiency without any extra fuel costs. Today, we can buy specialized insulation panels, but the image of a crude foil-wrapped piece of cardboard behind Grandpa's heater remains a vivid illustration of the thrift as a national policy mindset of the past. Insulating wool rugs. On harsh winter mornings, the moment your bare feet touched a freezing floor could make anyone shudder. In old houses without modern underfloor heating, the ground was the fastest place for heat to be absorbed and neutralized. To counter this physical phenomenon, our grandparents used thick wool rugs to cover walkways and common living areas. Natural wool is one of the best insulating materials ever found by humans, because its fiber structure is hollow and contains millions of tiny air pockets. The trapped still air within the wool fibers acts as an invisible barrier, preventing heat transfer from your feet to the cold floor and vice versa. By laying down wool rugs, the surface temperature of the floor could rise significantly, providing an immediate sense of warmth upon contact. Additionally, rugs helped seal small gaps in old wooden floors, preventing drafts from rising from the basement. The image of a family huddling on a colorful tapestry rug, playing board games or reading by the fireplace, has become a symbol of togetherness. It shows that comfort sometimes comes not from complex machinery, but from a deep understanding of natural materials. DIY solar air heaters. For homes without a favorable southern orientation, our predecessors used their ingenuity to create solar air heaters for windows. These devices were simple in construction but impressively effective. A shallow wooden box sealed to a window frame, containing black painted aluminum cans or corrugated metal sheets inside, with the exterior covered by glass or clear plastic. The operation is based on a natural thermosiphon effect. Cold air from the floor is drawn into the bottom vent of the box. As it passes over the black aluminum cans heated by the sun, the air warms rapidly, expands, rises, and is blown back into the room through the upper vent. This process creates a continuous air circulation without the need for any electric fans. On sunny days, the temperature of the air exiting this device can reach 100 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. This was a brilliant folk engineering innovation that added a significant amount of free heat to the home, reducing the burden on the main fireplace. Bubble wrap insulation. Although bubble wrap is a more modern invention compared to ancient methods, our grandparents' generation in the 70s and 80s utilized it thoroughly for insulation. It was considered a poor man's double glazing, but its effectiveness was undeniable. The application was incredibly simple. Just spray a thin mist of water onto the window glass, then press the flat side of the bubble wrap against it. The water would hold the wrap firmly without any need for glue. The structure of bubble wrap consists of thousands of tiny trapped air bubbles. In physics, still air is one of the best insulators. This layer of air bubbles creates an effective thermal barrier, preventing the cold glass from directly contacting the warm air in the room while minimizing heat loss through radiation. The biggest plus was that the material still allowed natural light to pass through, keeping the room bright. At the end of winter, the wrap could be easily peeled off, stored, and reused the following year. This is a prime example of the pragmatic and thrifty mindset of previous generations. Heating with soapstone. Soapstone is a unique mineral gifted by nature with the ability to absorb and store heat far better than ordinary brick or concrete. In the past, smooth, processed slabs of soapstone were indispensable items for families living in cold climates. Every evening, these slabs were placed on top of a roaring stove to charge. The dense structure of the stone allowed it to accumulate a massive amount of thermal energy without cracking under high heat. Once the stone was hot enough, the user would wrap it in thick towels and carry it with them. A hand-sized piece of soapstone could emit a smoldering warmth for 3 to 4 hours. They were tucked into coat pockets to keep the body warm while working outside or placed under thick blankets to pre-warm the bed before the owner turned in. Unlike hot water bottles that cool down quickly, soapstone heat is very steady and deep, providing a pleasant sensation similar to basking in the sun. Using natural stone for warmth was a unique cultural trait, demonstrating absolute harmony between humans and available natural resources. Have you ever wondered why simple things like these can change the feeling of a room? Do you prefer this kind of minimalism and self-reliance, or the one-button convenience of modern technology? Share your views with us. Reflectors for traditional fireplaces. Traditional wood-burning fireplaces, while beautiful and romantic, actually have very low thermal efficiency because most of the heat is sucked up the chimney with the smoke. To fix this fatal flaw, people of the past used a heavy metal plate, usually cast iron, placed upright against the back wall of the fireplace. This plate is called a fireback. It served as a shield protecting the brickwork from fire damage while acting as an effective heat amplifier. When the fire burned, the cast iron plate would absorb heat extremely quickly and become scorching hot. Instead of letting the heat be absorbed by the bricks and transferred outside through the back wall, the iron plate radiated the heat back into the room. Thanks to this reflector, the heating efficiency of a fireplace could increase by 40 to 50%. Old firebacks were often cast with intricate decorative patterns, making them both powerful heating tools and works of art for the living room. Their presence shows that our ancestors always sought ways to optimize every living tool for maximum efficiency. Trombe walls. A trombe wall is an advanced passive architectural technique applied since the last century to heat homes in high-altitude regions. The structure consists of a thick wall made of high thermal mass materials like concrete, stone, or brick, painted a dark color and placed directly behind a large glass layer facing the sun. A narrow airspace exists between the wall and the glass. During the day, sunlight passes through the glass and bakes the dark wall. Instead of radiating into the room immediately, the heat is absorbed and stored slowly deep within the wall's core. The heat transfer through the thickness of the wall takes several hours, creating a perfect thermal phase lag. When the sun sets and the outside air begins to chill, the stored heat finally starts radiating into the house, keeping the space warm all night long. This is a fully automatic heating system based on natural laws, helping the house function like a living organism, absorbing warmth by day and breathing it out all night to protect its inhabitants. Isolating cold rooms. Instead of trying to heat an entire large house, which was very costly, families would focus their living activities primarily in 1 or 2 main rooms, usually the kitchen or common room with a fireplace. All doors leading to empty bedrooms, hallways, or storage areas were kept tightly shut. People even hung thick blankets in doorways that lacked actual doors to prevent air exchange. By shrinking the living space, all heat sources from the fireplace, cooking stove, or even human body heat were concentrated, allowing the room to become cozy quickly. In winter, the house seemed to shrink, but family bonds grew tighter because everyone stayed close together in that shared warm space. Insulation with a haybox. The haybox was a genius invention born from fuel shortages, particularly popular during wartime or economic crises. Its principle is identical to a modern thermos or thermal cooker, but made from primitive materials. People used a large wooden box, lined it thickly with straw, wool, or sawdust, and left a snug space to place a cooking pot. When cooking, instead of simmering food on the stove until tender, which consumed a lot of wood, the cook only needed to boil the food for a few minutes, then immediately lift the pot into the haybox and seal the lid tight. The excellent insulating layer of straw kept the temperature in the pot high, allowing the food to cook itself gradually without further fire. Simultaneously, the haybox emitted a gentle residual heat that helped warm the kitchen area. This method saved fuel and kept the kitchen from becoming too soot-filled. The art of layering clothes. Our grandparents always taught us that many thin layers are better than one thick coat. This advice is perfectly accurate in terms of thermodynamics. Wearing multiple thin layers creates pockets of air between the fabrics. Since air is a poor conductor of heat, these air layers act as consecutive insulation, preventing body heat from escaping into the cold environment much more effectively than a single thick layer of fabric. The innermost layer is usually cotton or thin wool to wick away sweat and keep the skin dry. The middle layers are wool or fleece to trap heat, and the outermost layer is a wind-blocking material. The flexibility of this method lies in the ability to easily remove or add layers depending on your activity level, and the ambient temperature to avoid overheating and sweating. The ultimate taboo in winter, as cold sweat causes the body to lose heat very rapidly. This clothing coordination skill was a basic survival lesson that every child of the past was seriously taught by their elders. If we told these tips to the younger generation today, what do you think would surprise them most? Let's discuss the interesting differences between the two generations in the comments below. Radiant barrel heaters. In wood shops, garages, or large old homes, one would often encounter iron barrel heaters. Clunky in appearance, but undefeated in heating efficiency. The most common design was a kit that converted one or two 55-gallon drums into a wood-burning stove. The key to this design is the massive heat-radiating surface area of the iron barrel. Thin metal conducts heat very quickly, allowing warmth from the fire inside to transfer to the air instantly. Sometimes, a second barrel was installed above the main burn chamber to capture heat from the exhaust smoke before it escaped out the chimney. This double barrel system could raise the temperature of a large space to a comfortable level in a short time with minimal wood. Though not as aesthetically pleasing as a brick fireplace in a parlor, the barrel heater was a symbol of strength, practicality, and the mechanical mastery of the men who were the pillars of their families. Heating from a compost pile. One of the forgotten green energy sources today is the biological heat from organic decomposition. Farmers who understood nature discovered that the core of a large compost pile could reach temperatures of 140 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit due to intense microbial activity. They innovated by snaking coils of plastic water pipes inside these piles. Cold water flowing through the pipe system would be heated by the decomposition energy and piped directly into the house for use. This biological heating system could provide hot water for bathing or run through an underfloor heating system, maintaining a warm floor temperature all winter without costing a cent in electricity or gas. It is a perfect closed loop. Organic waste becomes fertilizer for next year's crops while providing heat for the present. This method requires knowledge and manual labor, but the result is absolute energy independence, something modern humans are still desperately searching for. Homemade vegetable oil lamps. Before electric lights illuminated every corner, the light and warmth in poorer homes often came from simple homemade oil lamps. Instead of using expensive kerosene with its pungent smell, people utilized waste vegetable oil or animal fat for fuel. A cotton wick dipped in a jar of oil, placed inside a ceramic or glass container, was enough to create a steady source of light and heat. The heat emitted from an oil lamp is not large, but in a small, well-insulated room, a few such lamps were enough to banish the biting cold and prevent frost from forming. Moreover, the warm yellow light of a real flame provided a positive psychological effect, creating a sense of safety and hope in the darkness. The act of making and maintaining an oil lamp flame was an important life skill, teaching people to cherish every bit of light and warmth in times of scarcity. Straw bale insulation. Building a house out of straw bales might sound like a fairy tale about the Three Little Pigs, but in American history, this was a highly sturdy construction method with superior insulation capabilities. Tightly compressed straw bales have a thickness that provides an R value many times higher than traditional brick or wood walls. Straw is an inexpensive agricultural waste product, but when properly plastered on the outside, it becomes a solid wall that completely isolates the living space from harsh external weather. A straw bale house can stay wonderfully warm in winter and pleasantly cool in summer without needing energy for air conditioning. Furthermore, this material has excellent soundproofing properties, creating a quiet living space. Using straw bales to build or reinforce walls is a testament to the wisdom of farmers in turning discarded materials into high-end building supplies, creating safe and sustainable homes for generations. Candle and layered brick heaters. In emergencies during power outages or when firewood ran low, the technique of building a mini heater from candles and red bricks saved many lives through freezing winter nights. This structure typically consisted of 2 bricks placed parallel as a base with a few candles in between, and more layers of brick stacked on top to form a small dome or tower. Fired red brick is a porous ceramic material that catches heat quickly and holds it for a long time. Though a candle flame is small when burned in a confined space surrounded by bricks, the entire heat output concentrates on warming that brick mass instead of drifting away. After about an hour, the bricks become red hot and start radiating heat like a miniature furnace. Even after the candles have burned out, the brick mass continues to emit warmth for a long time. The flickering light peeking through the brick gaps combined with the gentle heat created a safe and cozy refuge. This was a clever survival solution, squeezing the most energy out of even the smallest fuel sources. Memories. How do you feel after watching this video? Don't forget to share your thoughts and click subscribe to continue journeying back to the beautiful days of old with us.